record on this. Hello there, hospitality heroes. Welcome to another week of our weekly coaching. Today, I'm very lucky and very excited to have David White with me from Simplot. So I've got a little bit of a bio here, David, so I hope that this isn't too embarrassing that Carolyn sent me. David is a professional chef with over 19 years experience in product development and 35 years as a qualified chef. He studied cookery in the UK and holds a diploma in professional cookery and is qualified as a master chef, which I'll be interested to find out what that means. David has a strong background in team leadership and managing costs and budgets at an executive level and has extensive experience in working with corporate brands and acting as their ambassador. So thanks for joining us today, David. You are joining a lovely group of proactive and positive hospitality business owners here as we try to, I guess, survive and thrive through this time.
Hello, Hospo world.
So today I'm really excited. So David's from Simplot. So a few, I guess, it was really quick off the mark back, a month or 6 weeks ago. I received this in the mail, which was converting to takeaway or delivery during coronavirus, which was very apt because obviously that's the concern of a lot of people at the moment. And there was some great information through there. And I thought this is a topic that I know a lot of people are struggling with. I'm sure you see, David, especially at the start. And I think there's still some people struggling when they move from dine-in to takeaway, they're just using their existing menu with the same prices. Have you seen a bit of that? And I still see some people are still doing it.
Sure have. I mean, I think, the beautiful thing about takeaway, and this is probably a bit different to even 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, is that obviously the delivery services were there for us to get that done today. Which has meant that we can, the businesses have been able to have that avenue to get food to people, because I think things would have been dramatically worse if that hadn't been able to be, hadn't been there for people.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, I think I saw a stat the other day that takeaway was up by nearly 200%. So that's just a huge gain, and it's just enabled these businesses to get going. But yeah, the prospect of being able to take your existing menu and just flip it into takeaway is probably not a great idea on a couple of fronts. I mean, obviously you've got to think about your cost factor.
Yeah.
Not all dishes are going to work in a takeaway level that you might be using in-house. So you probably got to think about maybe them being a little bit more cost effective for people in the takeaway market. And then secondly, what the product's actually going to do. So are they going to survive that robust delivery, that robust delivery process that we all know is kind of out there. So smart businesses that I've seen definitely have, and this is pre-COVID. We're definitely running two menus, and I think that made all the sense in the world. And making sure that the dishes were suitable for that process. So just a little bit of thought around that, and costing it differently, because obviously we know the costs that are attached with paying the delivery services to get that done. So everyone's got to make a buck. So that's the other thing that's got to happen.
Yeah, cool. And do you think, I guess, so people are doing this, I think, with a degree of success. Have you seen anything, like how do you think people are generally coping and adapting to takeaway? Do you think there's people are doing it well, or?
Well, I mean, again, I was lucky enough to see some stats. I was looking at some stats the other day. So, I mean, home delivery was on a pretty good trajectory before COVID. So it was kind of, it was getting there. Millennials have really embraced this anyway. It's kind of the way they do it, right? When I say millennials, it's not even millennials anymore. It's X's now.
X, yeah.
That's just the way they do it. I mean, my daughter's ordered coffee to be delivered. It's like, are you serious? So, I mean, that's the new world, right? That's kind of going there. But I think some of us older generations have gone, well, we've got no choice now but to give this a go. So obviously that has then enabled these businesses to grow. And like with technology, and we found that technology has actually helped us to keep going with business. I think hospitality has kind of worked out that deliveries actually can work for everybody.
Yeah.
And a few things that I've seen that have been quite clever is and I always think of QSR advertising as a good litmus as to what's kind of happening out there in the trade. If you kind of see what's kind of happened with the QSRs, is you can see they're talking about families. So it's about providing meals for lots of people. And I think now with restrictions kind of easing and groups of people being able to get to other people's homes, still can't meet in restaurants just yet. But so it's how do I cater for people within home? So family boxes of family meals.
Yeah,
I
that
seem to be
value
that.
packaging.
Yes,
Things,
that larger sort of, I'm going to cater for that larger group has been successful. And as I say, that litmus test is when you see the QSRs advertising that, then
yeah,
it's generally kind of happening out there.
yeah. When
And
I went to McDonald's the other day, as I do
yeah,
because I've got a young family, nearly everyone was walking out with one of the big
yes,
family
boxes.
boxes,
Yeah,
those big red boxes. I
take
was
it
like,
home.
because it was like it's only like $25 or something. You get 4 burgers, and that's what the kids wanted. So that's what we got.
And I think if a lot of the smart businesses out there have picked up on that too. And the other thing I like what they're doing is going, well, okay, I'm doing okay with takeaway, but what's the add-on to that, and how do I step that up? So what I've seen now is they're doing take-home packs. So where, hey, 2 forms, either look, here's everything that we would normally do as an ingredient. You can take this home and cook it yourself, and we'll give you the recipe to do it. Or here's a catering pack, which will, maybe we'll have the quiche made and that sort of stuff, but you can make the salad. So they're giving people those options as well as additional add-ons to the classic hot delivery. There's the option of build it yourself down the thing. And
so you can really increase that average order value then. I was talking to someone, a really good way to do that is to have a free delivery ceiling, which is above, just like not far above a, like a family meal. And then you can, it's like, well, you can pay 10 or even like probably $13, $15 for delivery, or you could buy another meal and get it for free.
And get it for free. I mean, that makes sense, right? And that's something you can do tomorrow. And just another couple of things I've seen is where people are starting to add on a few, staples like milk and bread items and that sort of things that can be delivered at the same time, which potentially you can almost see continuing. Because if it makes it easy for people and the drivers are coming anyway, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, why wouldn't you? And like you say, when McDonald's is doing it, then you can get your milk and your bread.
Yeah.
That's a good. So there's exactly obviously some sort of value in it at the business level because they have the money to analyze all that stuff.
Their market research is massive, right?
Yep.
So if they're doing it, it's a pretty good indication.
Good reason why.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And do you think how long do you reckon takeaway will continue to be as things change, and it seems to be likely to be a very slow return back to whatever a new version of normal is? How long do you think takeaway and delivery models are going to be for hospitality businesses?
I think it's here to stay, right? It's not going anywhere. Like I said, it was already on a pretty good trajectory anyway.
Yeah.
I think it's going to continue. I think what's probably going to come into play, especially in the short term, is probably it's. I'm not sure this is the right word, but I think with takeaway, I feel it's going to be who's going to be the most hygienic. And I know that sounds a little strange, but I think there's going to be a lot of nervousness still around food and that sort of stuff coming out of this sort of stuff. So packaging, having the bag sealed the right way, making people feel confident that the product's been, not too handled by the time it's kind of got to you, and those sorts of things will probably be some of the stuff that's going to set businesses apart in this delivery space. If I receive a delivery and it's a bit sloppy and I can see it's not been packed with care, that kind of has a knock-on effect of what else has kind of happened to this. And I think just people are going to be overly cautious in this sort of space. I feel that's going to
and I think so. That's like getting your marketing and your messaging right around all the extra precautions that you're doing, that extra communication, as well as like even think to like what your staff are looking like or the delivery driver. If people are sloppy or not well groomed, then unfortunately it comes across as unhygienic.
I actually wrote it down this morning as the hygiene wars. I know that sounds a little crazy, but I feel like exactly that. I mean, if I was in business right now, those are the messages I'd be sending out. Would be, I'm doing this smarter, better, safer than my competitor, and I want to prove that, so you buy from me. And I think that smart businesses will certainly be doing that, and why wouldn't you?
And I think people, they do it once and then they think, oh, I've already done that. And I think it's important to remember with marketing that just because you think about it all the time doesn't mean that that's being reinforced to your customers, so that you should keep telling people over and over again.
This is why we do it. Yeah.
So we've talked a bit really about why dining doesn't really work for takeaway, I guess, and that's really you're looking at the costs and the price point and also the type of dish it is, right, that it won't travel well. So what does work for a takeaway and a delivery menu? And is takeaway and delivery, you can consider them the same thing, do you think? Or
Yeah, I think so, because I think the
Yeah,
parameters are kind of the same, whether it's your car or whether it's someone else's
someone
car.
else's.
I think the
Similar
process
time
is
till you
kind of the
get
same.
home. Yeah.
But I mean, look, it sounds logical, right? I mean, crispy things are just not going to do well. Deep fried stuff is going to struggle. I was lucky enough to do a whole lot of research again pre-COVID around delivery, and again the delivery services talk about 20 minutes, but it's not 20 minutes; it's 40 minutes that food is kind of getting around. So, you've really got to be just thinking about what is gonna survive that and get to the customer in good shape. I always use the analogy of, if I say to you French fries, already you've got a perception in your head around what French fries are. You're thinking long, crispy, golden, that sort of stuff, right? And
Yep.
it's 40 minutes in a delivery
There's
bag.
no
They're just not
way.
going to do it.
No.
So I've already dropped your I've already not met your
Expectations in that, yeah.
when I've kind of got there.
Yeah.
However, though, if I said to you wedges or gems or something like that, your expectation of those is kind of different, and you're probably going to be more forgiving of a product like that than gems. So even in that sort of simple analogy of choosing something that's probably going to do a better job than another
Yeah.
is a smart thing to do. And then obviously you're going to talk about casseroles and wet dishes and stir fries and things like that, which are always they're going to be fine. Like,
Yep.
they're going to hold the heat. They're going to, it doesn't matter how long they're cooked for. They're going to get there in fine shape. So you've got to think about that. I think, things
Yeah.
like hamburgers, the buns are
Yes,
always going to go
burgers.
soggy, right? Like,
Yeah.
so what can I do around that space? Could I have the buns separately and ask people to put that together when it kind of gets to you? Or what else can I do? Is there clever packaging I can use that's going to just a little bit of thought, I think, in kind of getting that to people will really help out.
Really thinking about the customer and the customer's
Mm.
experience, isn't it?
You know,
Taking it back to that.
not dressing the salads, just simple stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
So keeping those separate and letting
yeah,
people do that part
when
themselves.
they
Same with sauce on the chips
sauce, exactly.
or
People are gonna,
aioli. Like,
and I personally would rather do that myself
yeah.
than have someone do it. But in a restaurant environment, you're going to obviously, if you were loading your fries, for example, as an example, as I talk about, you're going to do that and send it out like that. But maybe
Yeah.
that's not the right option for delivery. But is
Yeah.
an option to put the sauces in the bag, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
So chips, like, obviously chips are the
world.
number one complaint. Number
Yes,
one, like, you think they're the easiest to get right, but they're the easiest to get wrong.
it's tough.
What should we
Yeah.
do about chips?
Well, look, again, I mean, back to what I just said before, I think
Yeah.
you can, so chips and potato, so we can talk about potato. So there's a couple of things I talk about is, again, back to that fry analogy.
Mm.
You can talk to people about French fries, or you could choose a potentially offering, because, like I said to you, if I'm going to send you some gems or some wedges, you're going to probably be happier with the result of those coming into me than
Yeah.
with a French fry.
Yeah.
So that's one way
Even
you
those
could,
thicker, like,
yeah, chunky
what a
chips.
beer batter or whatever.
Beer batter, we've got beer batter bad boys.
Yeah.
They're whoppers. The expectation on those is going to be different. But I mean, we're lucky enough that obviously we're a chip business. We knew that this was a pain point for the industry out there. We knew how important that was. So we've got a product called Delivery Chip, which is actually designed for that.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
these guys will
that was
hold.
already a problem before now.
It was
Exactly.
already a problem. And again, I mean, I talked about hygiene wars before. There's chip wars out there too, right? I mean, it sounds crazy.
No, I couldn't believe it when I went to a food.
It's huge.
There was, and like the amount saying how long that they'll last, how long they will stay crispy, and the coatings, and I was just like, whoa.
I mean, because this is our world, and we research it a fair bit. It's the second most important decision point, is how good the chips are going to be. I mean, that's how important that is to customers out there. I remember.
What's the first?
Oh, probably just a cuisine type, I would say. Like, do I want Thai, or do I want, Italian,
pizza,
or whatever? But if I'm after a burger, then it's, well, who's got the best chips, right? And if you've got two burger joints and one's got ordinary chips and one's got great chips, well, I'm going to swing over that way. So that's the kind of. So I talk about chip wars, and when I was talking to a lot of guys out there in the trade, again, pre-COVID, that was definitely understood, because Uber has a rating for chips, right? There's a lot of, so people will actually search a business by chip chip rating, right? Like,
chip rating, that is mental.
It's huge. So getting it right is really important. So when we thought about that, we came up with Delivery Chip, which has a 40-minute hold time, and it comes as a delivery package. Yeah, so it has we call it a delivery system because it comes with the packaging. Put those chips in this box, and they'll guarantee to get you there crunchy. And the other beautiful thing about it is, again, think about that, is even if they get there cold, you can microwave them. Sounds a little freaky, but because the batter is so crispy, it will actually take a 20 seconds zap in the microwave, put the heat back in the chip, but they'll still be crunchy. So because that's the other thing about delivery, and also using delivery services is, and I found this out myself when I went through research, is the customer doesn't understand that it's the delivery service that's caused the issue. They blame the restaurant. So they're going, definitely. You served me soggy
and so
chips.
many times you see that when on comments and feedback where the response is just like, we can't control that.
It's the restaurant, and it's the restaurant that will take the complaint. And when it's probably been in the back of some guy's car for too long, and there's nothing to do with the restaurant, but it's still the restaurant that kind of cops that. So something like that delivery chip was designed to give that restaurant the buffer to sort of say, well, if I want to deliver in confidence, that's what I can do. So, and
I mean, like, that's a whole nother conversation, isn't it, about delivery and how implementing that, whether you outsource or whether whether you do
it's starting to change. Well, that's starting to change too, I think. I'm starting to see a lot more people do it themselves.
And you can control it a lot better if you do it yourself.
Well, it's almost become, when you push people into a corner, they'll find an alternative. And I think some of the costs have just been so prohibitive in this space. They've had
what a fantastic aspect, especially if it's going to be a huge part of your business model to control the customer experience more by doing it yourself. Like, it's just, and to have that, like, I've heard of so many recently, even like big chefs and stuff doing the delivery themselves, and that, like, having that interaction to be able to, and the customer to see and to thank them personally. Because other time, if a delivery driver, they're not going to thank you. It doesn't matter to them whether you.
But someone turning up with your business's shirt on in your car,
like cleanly pressed, hair
representing
done.
your business, has lots of upsides. I mean, and I think, I was looking at the other day, there's some really slick payment systems out there now, which weren't around, and I think that's why, because those delivery services offered the payment system as well. But now you can get the payment system organized. You can do it yourself, because that was the hard part. So that's being taken care of. So that opens it up now. So I think that's that. Well, not I think, I know it will change.
Yeah, it will change everything.
Dramatically. Yeah.
So we talked about chips. The other thing I wanted to ask you was talking about fried stuff. And I know from experience that the biggest selling item on all the menus is fried chicken, right?
Yep.
Whether it's a fried chicken burger, all the pubs I've been talking to still selling huge amounts of parmas. Like
Parmigiana land, right? We'll deliver you the best parma.
Yeah, like, it's mental. Is there a way, or, what sort of stuff is there out there for people to be able to try and do that a bit better if they're struggling with that?
Packaging is huge, right? I sort of say to someone, let's take our delivery chip I was just talking about before, like, super crunchy. It doesn't matter if I took those chips and wrapped them up in Glad wrap, right? Doesn't matter. Like, they're not going to get there. So you've got to think about how you're going to get, what's the transport method with that? Paper and cardboard are always going to do better than plastic. And then,
is that because they don't like the crispy stuff, because they don't sweat?
There's just a little bit of breathing that can go on there. But then, and then there's all different scales on that. So if I took a paper clamshell container as it is, right, I put my chips in there, or my deep fried product in there, and I don't put a hole in it, right? It's going to be better if I put a hole in it. So, and then you can keep going up that scale of how, and then you can go and talk to packaging companies that have a lot of stuff that is just specifically designed for that, to let airflow and that sort of stuff come through. But just thinking a little bit, something you can do in that space is always better than if you don't, So if I chose, a paper clamshell over a plastic one, that's better. If I choose a paper clamshell that's vented,
environment, which people care about as well.
That's right. And then the packaging that you put it in, so is paper going to be better for you, sealing that bag down, so that people can see that it's not been tampered with, and those sorts of things. Even the way you load the bag, right? So if you're packing your bag, it's a really good idea to put your heavy hot stuff on the bottom as an insulator. I always think about Chinese takeaway as a good analogy. So I would put my wet dishes on the bottom, my spring rolls go in the middle, and my prawn crackers go on the top, right? Because I don't want them to get broken, but they don't need to stay hot. And then I can use napkins and paper towels or whatever that to kind of pack in around it, and just anything like that's going to help with heat retention is going to be really helpful.
So they're really great tips, because like, that's not, I guess if you speak to maybe your packaging supplier, they might be able to tell you that, but other things is just sort of knowing it or someone
Common,
telling you.
bit of like everyone would know this. It's just some people, not say some people. Sometimes you just because you're busy, you don't think
Yeah, you
about
don't
it,
think
right?
of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so having that, I guess, as a system for people who are doing the packaging is really important too. So to have that maybe even written down for people so that whoever's doing it
Yep.
packs it the same way, you're producing the same.
And diagrams are really good, right? If you can sketch it out and stick it on the wall and say, we pack like this because people are visual, it's going to make it just so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. And so in terms of pre-prepared products, I guess it can help. I was talking to some people about maybe, and we said too, about reducing the cost and maybe, I know at the moment and probably moving into maybe reducing labour by using convenience type products to a degree as well. Have you guys found that you've been producing, you probably have anyway because delivery, but some good items for people to use in that space?
So, I mean, Simplot's a world of convenience is kind of our starting point. But I think managing costs in a kitchen. I mean, this is kind of a different world. I've thought a little bit about this. Things like frozen vegetables, where appropriate, are going to really be helpful because you're not going to be sure what your business is. It's going to fluctuate, right?
Yeah.
Anything that's got an extended shelf life could potentially save you some bucks, right? So if you know. And with frozen vegetables, I mean, I know all the cons of using frozen vegetables, but there's also a lot of pros. You've got consistent pricing. You can take what you need, you can put the rest back. So if you're doing cauliflower cheese, it doesn't really matter whether that cauliflower cheese is from fresh cauliflower or from frozen cauliflower, because ultimately, you're going to put a white sauce on it, things like that. It's just an example. So if what I'm saying is use convenient products where it makes sense and where it can save you money. And maybe chefs out there should be thinking a little bit harder about that because maybe they don't have the labor right now because they're doing it tight. And also they might have things kicking around in the fridge or freezer longer than what they potentially might like, and their wastage is going up. So using convenience products where it makes sense.
Where it makes sense. So depending on the dish, obviously.
Depending on the dish and where you can get away with it, where you can actually, save some bucks. I mean, that's what I will be doing. I'll be breaking that down, saying, well, what I need to manage my costs, right? So what do I have to do, and where can I tweak, and where can I kind of make a difference, and find these products that are going to help me out. So sure, anything like frozen vegetables are going to do really, really well. And then there's a whole lot of pre-made stuff. I mean, we've got some great something like our flathead fillets, our R&J flathead fillets, beer batter flathead fillets. I mean, I would challenge most people to know whether that was made in house or whether they're hand dipped anyway, right? So again, finding a product that you're comfortable with at your standard to sort of say, I'm kind of okay with that. But then it still can be mine because it might be the way that I season it, or it might be the way that I top it, or the way that I serve it. It's still my dish, but I've saved myself that time of doing that base product, and I'm still comfortable to call it my own. So it's finding those sort of products that you want to be comfortable with. But ultimately, at the end of the day,
there's also those amazing 24-hour barbecued things that you can get as well.
There's lots
that are
of sous vide products out there. And again, with all those sorts of things, I mean, I've done a lot of work with people over the years. How you finish something. So if you buy a convenience product that's pre-made, how you finish it. So let's take an example of a casserole, for example. You buy in the casserole, you reheat it, and then you top it with bacon and grilled mushrooms and whatever, and croutons across the top, and you finish it and garnish it your way. It still becomes your dish, but you've saved yourself that labor. As long as you're comfortable with what you're kind of starting on. That fried fish is another analogy.
And it goes with your brand and fits with your market.
But while you finish something, your finishing touch
makes it yours.
Still makes it yours. But what you've got to then really think about is your labor costs, because they're huge, right? So most businesses around 20, 25, 30% of their costs are labor.
If they're lucky,
it's massive, right? So any of that sort of space you're going to save, or the other way to look at it is, if you save labor, then what else can I do with it? Could I put them onto something else that's going to make me more money?
And I think you're right that hopefully people are costing to that sort of degree. If you're doing your menu costing properly and you've got those spreadsheets worked out, I know a lot of them work on the POS now too, but you can see how tiny changes in labor and ingredients costs can have a really big impact on that, percentage. And when most people are working from a, 2% profit, that's the average. then, you know, tweaking that by a couple of percent is huge, you know.
And that's money straight in your pocket, right? Like,
yeah.
it's not, the other thing I'd probably mention in this space as well is the length of your menu, or the length of your offering. You know, are you you're better off to do one or two things really, really well?
Yeah.
And they're shifting out of the door, as opposed to a dozen things and half of them aren't moving, you know.
And I think most people would probably find they have that sort of happens organically a little bit to a lot of people. So it's, you know, good to be looking at that data, and maybe you could double down on that a bit more.
Well, then cut off the tail, because if they're not selling, then don't do them, because otherwise it's just wastage for you, right?
Another guy I was talking to the other day, he's at a restaurant. He was doing, they've designed their menu, and it's got chicken Ballantine on it, and they don't do much fried stuff, but they've got chicken Ballantine and a fish dish, and they haven't sold any fish. And I was like, well, why is it still on the menu? And he said, but they've sold heaps of chicken Ballantine. Like,
keep going with that.
There you go.
Well, then what can I do with the chicken Ballantine? Is there another way I can serve it? Can I evaluate it in a different way?
And he was a bit like me. I mean, I rarely order chicken when I go out, but I would often order fish, because it's not something I make much myself at home. But
that's very true.
So many people, chicken is their go-to. Like, it's
safe.
Yeah. Chicken is like,
if I'm not sure, I'm safe.
You better have chicken on your menu, is all I can say.
Totally.
So pricing considerations for takeaway and delivery. People, they want to pay a bit less, don't they?
I think so.
But it depends how you package it up.
That's right. I mean, you know, you can hide some costs in bundle deals, right?
Yeah.
So not when I say hide some costs, you can make it a better value proposition.
Yeah, make it a value, exactly. Make it seem more valuable. If the person thinks that they're getting more value than the price,
totally,
then they'll feel better about the transaction.
Totally. And that can just simply be a clever selection of products that you've put together in a sensible way that sort of says, okay, I'm going to bundle this up like that.
Yeah.
Could certainly do that, as opposed to ordering by individual item, you know. Could be that sort of stuff.
Like a value meal. I mean,
like
you know.
Value meal. Or,
you know, a burger and chips and a Coke separately cost you a lot more than together, but, you know,
or even cost-effective add-on. So here's your base meal, and if you add X and you add Y, it'll just cost you $2 more. You know, people are much more comfortable to kind of do it that way, and they'll probably have the add-ons if they seem reasonable, and they could be really profitable for the business to make sure that they, you know, just upscale that their revenue coming in a little bit. So sides are great, add-ons are great. Build it your way is great, because you can then sort of, you know, here's our base burger, but add bacon,
whatever your
stuff will kind of get you up there.
That's cool. Build it your way.
And then I think you do have to. I think you're right. I think you've got to really think about, you know, your delivery should be, within reason, should be somewhat more cost effective than what's going to be eating out there. And I think customers want to see that, because they've, you know, when we know you haven't got to wash the dishes, we know you haven't got to clean the table afterwards. We know there isn't the waiting staff involved. So I'm not silly. I would expect that a little bit cheaper, not super much cheaper, but I do expect it to be, because I'm going to be doing the dishes at home.
And I mean, like, it's not many people is going to pay for sort of $35, $40 to have like a main meal at home.
I don't think so. No.
You know, but I said the same thing. I think separating things more, so having the sides separate. The unfortunate thing is, when people do takeaway, is a little bit different to dine-in. A lot of the times dine-in, people look at individual prices, but they tap without looking at the end. So the total is not a big deal. Whereas when you takeaway, it's a bit different. You know, it's still the same. They don't individual prices. They want to see them under a ceiling, but the total is there, and they see that before they.
It's a really good point. I mean, you're adding it up as you go, aren't you? When you're doing a takeaway, so you're under no illusion of what it's going to cost you.
So, but I think you're right. Bundling things up and showing people where they're like, oh, you've saved this much by buying it like this,
or
and you avoided a delivery fee, and adding all.
Add cheese, add bacon. Those sorts of things are great. It also gives, you know, another trend that we always talk about, which is personalization, the ability for someone to have it their way, right? Which is what, especially the millennials and Xers, that's what they want. So you can deliver to that. You can deliver to that trend too by building it your way.
So what have you seen? What are the most popular sellers that you guys are selling at the moment?
So delivery chip has gone gangbusters, which you know, who knew, right? When we kind of picked up on the fact that this business was, you know, that trajectory of home delivery was on the increase anyway. but because it's become so important, we just, we had that product in the market, so it's gone whoosh, because everybody just wants to.
Well, and like think about it, like that's so good. You all the research and dollars and investment that you guys have put into that. Great timing.
It was like I say, who knew?
Great for everyone, yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's great for the businesses out there because
Yeah.
they're able to give their customers what they want, and obviously it's good for us because we were out there with a product that kind of worked really well.
Mm.
But I mean, there's some great stats from Simplot. I mean, somebody in Australia every day will eat a product from Simplot. So that's kind of the scale of the business, whether it's food service or retail. And you're going to eat something from us every day. But we've got classics like the Chiko Roll.
Yeah.
Our fish products. Leggos tomato paste, like there's stuff out of there that's kind of institutional, that's just is always going to be huge sellers, and people just kind of go to. I think we sell like something like 18 million Chiko rolls a year, right? So it's just kind of it's everyone's
who is eating them?
Well, I kind of think
a lot of people.
I think about it. There's about 25 million Australians, so we're roughly all having like one Chiko roll a year. To kind of think about it that way. So.
And they don't even do the famous Chiko Roll ads anymore.
No, they've kind of it's just
bit too un-PC.
It's an Aussie icon. It's a bit of an Aussie icon. But yeah, chips are huge, and those sort of products that have been Aussie favourites for years obviously sell well, and we're huge in fish and we're huge in veg, and so yeah, we've got plenty of products, but delivery chip is kicking goals.
It's huge, and so like if that was me, I'd want to where can I get delivery, like through any supplier?
Through any of your distributors. Absolutely. Edgell Super Crunch delivery is what you're looking for.
So the Edgell Super Crunch delivery.
And it comes with its own packaging to help you get that done as well, which is tamper proof, which kind of picks up on another tip. No one wants to think that someone's nicking their chips out of the bag. So it kind of delivers on a lot of.
I hadn't thought of that, but that sealing the bag with some sort of tape or a sticker is like, that's a really great tiny thing that will have a big impact on the mindset of people.
Thing. Yeah. And that comes back to the hygiene wars again, right? No one's been in my bag before.
I had not, honestly, I hadn't even thought of someone doing that, but now I'm like, that's what I do when I get the kids from McDonald's. I go,
seal it down.
Thank you.
Well, it's too risky. Who doesn't? Look, I've got no off switch for chips. That's a problem, right? So
I don't think anyone does, do they?
It's not good working in a chip company and having no off cut.
And what a shame you have to like research and develop them all the time.
Do you know how many chips I've eaten over the years? It's insane. Yeah.
Oh, it's good. Well, I don't have any other sort of specific questions. Was there any other advice in terms of like people designing their takeaway menus or just what's happening in the industry that you wanted to talk about with people?
I think the only other thing I'd probably say is now's a good opportunity to connect. So, what are you doing around Facebook? The good old fashioned leaflet drop around the area, right? So we talked a little bit about hygiene wars and those sorts of things. But if you're doing delivery and you're doing a good service, you've got to tell people about it, right? So you can't just assume that they're going to know.
You can't.
So, I mean, even simple things like I've seen where people putting chalkboards out the front of their businesses saying we're open and we're doing this. I think, all sounds logical, right? But I think you've got to tell people about what you're doing and how you're doing it differently. Like I say,
people do it once and then they're like, I don't want to be too pushy. I've already told them. But you got to tell people over and over again what you're doing.
Absolutely. I mean, if you've got staff that are maybe looking for something to do, get them on a leaflet drop, right? Why not? And then I still respond to stuff coming through the letterbox, right? Same. So never underestimate it. So talking to your local community, I think, because they're the ones that are going to support you.
And I've heard in marketing, it's this sort of known thing that if you put in a letterbox to like a plain piece of paper, people will pick that up because they've got heaps of glossy stuff. Like that goes straight in the bin. But like a plain, like a little flyer from a local window washer. It's like, oh, what's that? Like it's worse.
Is it a special deal?
Yeah, is it a special deal? And it's local. I guess you have that feeling that it's local.
Community.
So people maybe, community. And community's been so supportive at the moment.
And I think that's and people are like that at the moment. They don't want to. They want to support local community. They want to support people who are around them. So good opportunity to get your message out. Let people what you're doing.
Yeah.
So to summarize all of that, let people know what you're doing. Do it hygienically. Do it in the right packaging, at the right price point, and it's a menu that works for you in regards to its costing. And if you get all those things right, you should make some good bucks out of takeaway, and people want it.
Awesome. Sounds good. I think that we can wrap it up here. Thank you
Thank you.
so much for joining me, David.
My
I think
pleasure, Sarah.
there's really valuable information here for people that they'll be able
so.
to refer back to again. Some great little tips there, and you know, I think there's something everyone can learn about.
And if
that.
they want
So,
more information, I mean, you know, you can contact us through the Simplot website, so simplotfoodservice.com. You can get onto us that way, or there's telephone numbers, probably on the brochure that's there.
yeah,
I'm happy to have a chat with anybody who needs some advice. So yeah.
awesome. There you go, guys. Very lucky. Well, thank you very much, David. And
Thank you,
everyone,
Sarah.
if you want to join in, if you haven't registered to get these, I guess, the recording sent to you before, do feel free to jump onto our website, avtest.com.au, and you can register to get invited to these weekly webinars. So you can join us, you can submit questions for our experts, and you can also receive the recordings for yourself to refer to later on. So thanks again, and I'll see you guys later.